I don't want a daughter like you, my mother said, her voice steady and absolute, delivered in the living room of the house where I had grown up in suburban Chicago, surrounded by the woman's magazines she still subscribed to and the photographs of family members she still considered worthy of display. I had gotten divorced 3 weeks earlier. The marriage had lasted 5 years. I had tried everything: marriage counseling, date nights, therapy, and I had finally accepted that trying to force a relationship to work when both people no longer wanted it was a form of self-harm, masquerading as commitment. I had called my parents to tell them, expecting sadness, maybe disappointment, but not this. Rejection so complete that it felt like erasure. Divorced women bring shame to this family, my mother continued, each word landing like a stone dropped into still water. Your father and I raised you better than this. We raised you to keep your commitments. And you've embarrassed us in front of the church, in front of the community. I can't have people asking me about you. I can't have them knowing that my daughter is a quitter. I had asked if this meant I couldn't come home anymore. She had looked away from me and hadn't answered, which was an answer in itself. How had the woman who had raised me, who had taught me about unconditional love, who had whispered encouragement in my ear at every school play and ballet recital, suddenly become a stranger who saw me as a source of shame? My name is Rebecca Martinez, and this is the story of how I learned that conditional love is not love at all, and that sometimes the most powerful response to someone's rejection is simply accepting that rejection and building a life without them. I was born and raised in Chicago by Dominican immigrant parents. My father was a carpenter. My mother was a seamstress. They had come to this country with nothing and had built a life through hard work and faith. They had instilled in me the importance of education, family, and the Catholic Church. Those 3 things, they had told me, were the foundation of a meaningful life. I had followed that blueprint. I had graduated from Northwestern University. I had become a social worker. I had met a kind man named David at church. We had dated for 2 years, gotten engaged, and had a wedding that my mother had spent 6 months planning. It had been beautiful and traditional and had felt like the beginning of forever. It had been the beginning of a 5-year detour instead. David had been kind, but he had also been emotionally unavailable. He had refused to go to marriage counseling. He had preferred isolation to communication. He had slowly withdrawn from our relationship until we were living parallel lives in the same house. After 5 years of trying, after 5 years of me asking for help and him refusing, I had finally admitted that I couldn't force this to work. I had filed for divorce, and my mother had cut me off. For 3 years, I didn't hear from her. No phone calls, no holiday invitations, no birthday messages. My father occasionally sent me email messages in careful, halting English, but my mother remained silent. When I tried to reach out, my calls went unanswered. When I sent letters, they were not acknowledged. My sister had told me that my mother had removed my photograph from the family shrine in their bedroom, that she had told people at church that I had chosen a different path, and that the family was in prayer for my soul. That she had essentially told people I was dead, at least in the way that mattered to her. During those 3 years, I built a life. I focused on my work as a social worker. I got my master's degree. I bought a small house. I developed friendships with people who actually valued me. I went to therapy and processed the pain of being rejected by my family. I learned that rejection was about the rejecter, not about the rejected. I had also made a decision during those 3 years. I would not fight for my relationship with my mother anymore. If she chose to cut me off, that was her decision. But I would not beg her to accept me. I would not try to prove my worth to someone who had decided I didn't have any. Then, in year 3 of the estrangement, my sister called me. "Mom's sick," she said quietly. "Really sick. She needs a kidney transplant. Dad's testing didn't match. None of us match. The doctors are saying that if we can't find a match soon, she'll have to go on dialysis permanently. Rebecca, I know things are bad between you, but would you test? Would you see if you match?" I had been silent for a long time. "Rebecca?" my sister asked. "Please?" "I'll test," I had said. "But not for her. I'll test because she's still my mother, even if she stopped being mine." The testing had taken 2 weeks: blood work, tissue typing, genetic matching. And then the results had come back. I was a perfect match. My kidney could save my mother's life. When the transplant coordinator had called to tell me the results, she had been enthusiastic about the possibility of surgery. She had talked about how wonderful it was that family could help family. She had scheduled a consultation appointment. I had hung up and I had cried, because I understood what I now had that my mother desperately needed. I understood that I held her life in my hands, and I understood that I had a choice to make about what to do with that power. My sister had asked me if I would do it, if I would donate my kidney. "I don't know," I had told her. "I need to think about it." What I had needed to think about was whether I was willing to save someone who had rejected me, whether I was willing to give up part of my body for someone who had given up on me, whether I was willing to be the bigger person when the bigger person in this situation was me and had been me all along. I had gone to therapy and I had talked about my options. My therapist had been very clear. "You have no obligation to do this. This is your body. Your health matters. Your boundary matters." But I had also known something that transcended obligation, that I would regret it for the rest of my life if I didn't at least have a conversation with my mother about what would be required for me to do this. So I had asked my sister to arrange a meeting, not at a family member's house, not at the church, at the hospital, on neutral territory. My mother had looked smaller than I remembered. Age and illness had diminished her, and I had felt something complicated. Not quite forgiveness, but recognition that she was human and fragile and mortal. "Rebecca," she had said, and it was the first time she had said my name in 3 years. The sound of it had broken something inside me that I hadn't known was still closed. "I need to talk to you about something," I had said. I had pulled out a document. It was 1 page, carefully drafted by a lawyer, and it laid out the conditions under which I would donate my kidney. "What is this?" my mother had asked. "It's the price," I had said simply. "This is what needs to happen if you want my kidney." The first condition was an apology. Not a performance apology, not a casual apology, but a genuine acknowledgement of the harm that she had caused. A statement that she understood that divorce was not a moral failing, an acceptance that her rejection had been wrong. The second condition was acceptance of my choices going forward. If I ever got married again, she would celebrate it. If I ever got divorced again, she would support me. She would stop measuring my worth against some arbitrary standard of what she thought I should be. The third condition was ongoing therapy. For her. To help her understand why she had needed to reject me, and to help her develop a healthier understanding of love and family. The fourth condition was that she would never, ever again tell me that she didn't want me as a daughter, that words had consequences, and some words couldn't be taken back. My mother had read the document, and she had screamed, not in anger, but in something closer to anguish. "You're willing to let me die?" she had asked. "You're willing to let your own mother die?" "I'm willing to let you make the choice," I had said. "You rejected me. You cast me out. You told me I was a source of shame. And now I have something you need. So the question is, are you willing to accept the terms of reconciliation? Or are you willing to accept the consequences of your rejection?" She had screamed again, and my sister had come running. My father had appeared in the doorway, confused and frightened. "She won't give me her kidney," my mother had said, and she had been sobbing. "She's letting me die." "That's not accurate," I had said calmly. "I'm giving her a choice. She can accept my conditions and get the kidney. Or she can refuse. And she can continue living without her daughter and without my kidney. Those are her options." My mother had tried to get around me. She had called my sister and asked her to pressure me. She had called my father and asked him to convince me. She had tried every manipulation she could think of, and I had held firm. After a week of this, my mother had called me directly. It was the second time she had called in 3 years. "I'm sorry," she had said. "I'm sorry for rejecting you. I'm sorry for making you feel like you weren't worthy of my love. I was wrong. And if it's not too late, I would like to accept your conditions. I would like my daughter back." I had been silent for a long moment. "I need to think about it," I had said. "This isn't a quick decision." What I had needed to think about was whether her apology was genuine or whether she was just saying what she needed to say to get what she needed. Whether reconciliation was actually possible or whether I was just going to be setting myself up for more pain. But I had also known something. I was the one in control now. I was the one deciding what happened next, and that was powerful. I had agreed to donate the kidney, but I had made it clear that reconciliation would be gradual, that I would need to see changed behavior, that words were not enough. The surgery had happened 3 months later. My recovery had been uncomplicated. My mother's surgery had been successful. And then, we had begun the process of rebuilding. It was not easy. My mother had continued therapy, and she had made genuine progress. She had apologized to the church, to the community. She had told people that she had been wrong to reject her daughter. She had learned through the donated kidney inside her body that love should never be conditional. But the relationship we rebuilt was different from the one we had before. It was more honest. It was less performative. It was based on her accepting who I was, rather than me trying to be who she wanted me to be. My name is Rebecca Martinez. I am 42 years old. I am a social worker with a master's degree. I am a woman who donated a kidney to save my mother's life, not out of obligation, but out of choice, and I made my choice conditional on her accepting my terms for reconciliation. What I learned from my mother is that love that has to be earned through suffering or shame is not love. That sometimes you have to let people experience the consequences of their choices. That sometimes the most loving thing you can do is say no. I also learned that reconciliation is possible, but only if both people are willing to do the work. My mother chose to do that work. And because she did, we have rebuilt something. It's not what it was before. It's something different, something more real, something based on honesty instead of performance. The kidney she received saved her life, but the conditions I placed on that kidney are what saved our relationship. My name is Rebecca Martinez. I am the woman who learned to value herself enough to demand that other people value her too. And I am the woman who gave my mother a second chance, but only after she proved she deserved it.